got out of bed this morning, did you think to yourself, I'm going to practice good safety habits today? Odds are you didn't. Yet most of us practice some good safety habits at some point every day. We wear seat belts, we keep our hands and feet clear of lawnmower and snowblower blades. We make sure we have working smoke alarms. We do it because we've learned to practice safety. We do it because we want to protect ourselves and the people around us. Why should it be any different at work? Just like at home, the workplace is full of potential hazards, even more so. But as long as you're aware of those hazards and take the proper precautions, you can protect against them. The good news is there are a lot of people concerned about your safety at work. Our government has an agency that focuses on employee safety, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA. OSHA was formed back in 1970 to develop and enforce job safety and health standards. Your company values your safety. You wouldn't be participating in this training session if they didn't. They've implemented protections and controls to ensure your workplace meets OSHA safety standards and you have a safe work environment. But nobody can keep you safe without your cooperation. It's up to you to know how to identify hazards, how to avoid or eliminate them, and report hazards and unsafe conditions so people you work with stay safe as well. Before we get to the specifics on how to do that, let's make a quick check of your safety mindset. If you saw your coworker stacking boxes like this, what would you do? Of course, you'd steer clear of the hazard. And you should also take steps to make sure someone else doesn't end up under that heavy pile of boxes. Point out the problem to your coworker so he can fix it. Maybe even offer to help. Pardon the unavoidable pun, but safety doesn't happen by accident. Even if safety isn't the first thing you think of when you wake up in the morning, it needs to be on your mind throughout the day. You have to think about safety, to choose to be safe, and to take responsibility to protect yourself and your coworkers. Let's look at what that means. We'll cover work practices, the work environment, the safe use of equipment, and what to do in case of an emergency. Everything you see here may not relate directly to your specific job assignment, but it will help you get into a safety-first frame of mind. practices are a combination of learned behaviors, routines, and habits. And you know as well as I do, there are good habits and there are bad habits. Your employer wants to make certain your safety habits are good ones. Setting up your workstation ergonomically is a start. That simply means you should make adjustments to your workstation where possible to fit your body, so you don't have to move in awkward or uncomfortable ways. Some quick examples: raise or lower your chair, or adjust the distance you have to reach for supplies. This helps prevent an injury that might occur if you had to repeatedly strain and stress to complete everyday work tasks. There's a good chance your company's safety team can help you with the specifics. The parts of your body most vulnerable to stress and strain are your hands, wrists, arms, shoulders, back, and legs. Repetitive motion injuries can happen if you repeat the same movement over and over. Even simple movements can be harmful over time. If you feel any pain, numbness, or joint stiffness, or if you know of a better way to perform your job that avoids repetitive motion, talk with your supervisor about it. Make it a habit to avoid long periods of repetitive twisting and forceful or flexing motions while you work. If you can't avoid it, do yourself a favor. Stretch periodically and use good posture. Talk to your supervisor about taking frequent breaks. Along those same lines, if your job involves lifting, do it right. Know the maximum weight limits for manual lifting in your job and use proper lifting techniques. Test the weight of the load before you lift by moving one of the corners. Split larger loads into smaller, more manageable ones. And get help with large loads, whether from another person or material handling equipment. If the load is heavy and you're planning to pull or push rather than lift it, pushing is usually best. You're generally able to push about 2 times the weight you can pull. Of course, when you're lifting, bend at the knees and let your legs do the work, not your back. Keep the load as close to your body as possible. And whatever you do, don't twist your back while lifting. Set the load down by bending at the knees. Don't take unnecessary chances when lifting. You could end up with an injury. A lousy way to put the wrap on a work day. Are you someone who likes a clean work area? If so, that's great, because it's important to keep work areas clean to prevent accidents. Workstations, storage areas, passageways, and stairways should be kept free of obstacles that could cause slips and trips, injuries, or fire hazards. Materials should be stored the right way. Be sure stacked materials are stable. The last thing you want to do is create a hazard. Collect and dispose of waste properly in containers with lids, and throw away glass and other sharp objects in approved containers. This is a lockout device, and this is a tag, and you need to respect them. If you're not familiar with lockout tagout devices, take the initiative to know what they are and what they look like. Lockout devices and tags are used when equipment or machinery is being serviced or maintained. They protect you from accidental exposure to energized equipment or circuits. Lockout devices block the flow of energy from a power source, so equipment won't accidentally release energy or start up. The energy being blocked could be from any number of sources, including mechanical, electrical, hydraulic, steam, or even gravity. Tags warn others not to restore energy to the lock or tagged power source. In the case of electrical energy, both a lockout device and a tag are used if possible. Lockout tagout affects everyone who comes in contact with energy-powered machinery and equipment, although only certain workers are qualified to apply lockout tagout devices. Any affected employee must be notified before lockout tagout devices are applied, and again after they're removed. If you value your life, don't ignore lockout tagout devices, and never remove them either. Only an authorized individual is allowed to do that. Now let's look at the work environment itself. It's true, there are potential hazards everywhere, but you can avoid them. Let's review how. The first hazard on our list: slips, trips, and falls. People slip, trip, and fall in workplaces every day, sometimes resulting in serious injuries. Slips may be caused by wet surfaces, spills, or weather-related hazards like ice or snow. Trips can easily result from uneven rugs, loose tiles, cords, hoses, even friction between your shoes and the floor. Slips and trips can also happen if you wear shoes without adequate traction, or when you don't pay attention to where you're walking. Obviously, you're more likely to slip or trip when you're in a hurry. So slow down. Looking out for the culprits that cause slips and trips, along with the falls and injuries that can result, will help you avoid them. Spills need to be cleaned up right away. Any loose flooring, carpeting, and the like need to be reported so they can be repaired. You can also do simple things like keep work areas and walkways free of clutter. Eliminate extension cords located in walkways. If you can't, use extension cord protectors. Take care so that you can see over any load you're carrying. It just makes sense, right? Chemicals are another common hazard source you may encounter during your workday. When you do, you have a right to know what the chemicals are, how to protect yourself, and how to respond to emergency situations. That information is communicated to you in a number of ways as part of OSHA's Hazard Communication Standard. A key hazard communication source is the Material Safety Data Sheet, or MSDS. You'll find these sheets in your workplace for any dangerous chemicals present. Every hazardous chemical in your workplace needs to have an MSDS, and it needs to be readily accessible to all employees. Ask your supervisor where MSDSs are located in your facility. An MSDS describes a chemical's physical properties and how to safely handle it. If you work with chemicals, you can check the MSDS for the necessary personal protective equipment. It's also a good idea to check the MSDS to see what first aid treatment is needed if you or someone else is exposed, and how to respond to incidents like spills and fires. Container labels that identify chemicals and provide hazard warnings are another form of hazard communication. Don't worry, you won't be on your own if you work with chemicals. Part of hazard communication is employee awareness training. If your job involves exposure to chemical hazards, your employer must provide you with the information and training you need before you work with chemicals of any kind. Electrical hazards are something you want to keep your distance from, unless you're a trained and qualified electrician. Stay away from exposed electrical components and barricaded areas where electricians are working. The fact is, it doesn't take much electricity to cause an injury. Typical household current can be more than enough to kill someone. The main thing to know about electricity: leave electrical problems to the professionals, the people who've had specialized training to work on or near exposed energized parts. Don't create electrical problems either. Some common sense rules to follow are to make sure your hands are dry when you use electricity, and to inspect tools and cords before you use them. Don't use extension cords for anything except temporary needs. They can become pinched or severed over time, creating the potential for electrocution. Don't use cords that have missing third prongs. they're not grounded, meaning they could cause a shock or worse. And don't strain extension cords in any way. It can create dangerous weak points that can harm you and the equipment the cord is plugged into. One last word on electrical safety. Electricity is a prime cause of workplace fires and explosions, especially if there's old wiring, worn insulation, or broken electrical fittings. Help keep your workplace safe by reporting these hazards immediately. As this fire triangle illustrates, fires can only occur if three ingredients are present: oxygen, heat, and fuel. The key to fire prevention is to keep these three ingredients separate. Some practical things you can do to help prevent fires include keeping storage areas free of trash and placing oily rags in covered containers. Also, take extra precaution when handling flammable or combustible liquids or LP gas. If you smoke, do so only in designated smoking areas. If a fire does occur, remain calm but act quickly, because fires can spread rapidly. Exit immediately. Cover your face if you can. Stay low and sound the alarm on your way out. Even if the blaze looks like something you could extinguish, your employer may not want you to. That's because different fires need to be extinguished differently. And if you don't have the proper training, you could actually make matters much worse. Let me give you an example. If you attempt to extinguish an electrical fire with a water-type extinguisher, the electrical current can follow the water stream and electrocute you. The point is, when a fire occurs, follow your company's emergency action plan and only attempt to extinguish a fire if you're properly trained. Once you're outside, move away from the building as quickly as possible to your prearranged meeting area. Check in right away with the person in charge for an accurate head count. If you'll be working in confined spaces like tanks, ducts, pipelines, and the like, you'll get specialized safety training. Confined spaces can harbor toxic or flammable contaminants, or they might not have enough oxygen, making them extremely dangerous. OSHA requires employers to have detailed procedures, including an entry permit system, before any employee can enter a permit-required confined space. Unless you're a trained, authorized entrant, never enter a confined space. If you are trained to work in confined spaces, it's critical to follow your company's procedures to the letter. And if you work near confined spaces, obey signs that identify these dangerous places. Don't attempt to rescue someone in a confined space unless you're trained to do so. More than half of confined space fatalities are would-be rescuers. In areas where hazardous materials, chemicals, equipment, or processes are present, certain types of hazard warning signs may need to be posted. Know what the signs mean, and more importantly, follow them. Danger signs, which are predominantly red, white, and black, warn about immediate hazards. Caution signs, predominantly yellow and black, warn about potential hazards and unsafe practices. Exit signs in red letters against a white background must clearly mark all exits and exit routes in the workplace. Take the time to learn the location of exits and exit routes in your workplace. It may save your life someday. Safety instruction signs are predominantly green, white, and black and provide general instructions and suggestions relating to safety measures. Sometimes signs can blend in with your surroundings, but don't make the mistake of ignoring them. It may not immediately come to mind as a work environment hazard, but a key issue nonetheless is temperature extremes. Working in hot environments like foundries, laundries, or construction sites can pose special hazards. Stay cool by drinking plenty of water, about 5 to 7 ounces every 15 to 20 minutes. Avoid caffeine, which makes your body lose water. While not always possible, it can be helpful to gradually acclimate to heat over a period of time. For example, start with working only a few hours in the heat and build up to a full shift over a period of several days. Other good tips are to wear light, breathable clothing and take rest breaks in cool areas. Tell your supervisor immediately if you begin to experience symptoms of heat-related illness like dehydration, cramps, or exhaustion. Cold environments aren't any better. In fact, the frequency of worker accidents is higher because impulses are inhibited and cold hands can become clumsy. You might think that all you have to do is dress appropriately, but you might be wrong. To work safely in cold environments, it's important to allow time to adjust to the cold. To work during the warmest hours of the day when possible. To stay hydrated and to work with the body. Also, know the symptoms of dangerous cold-related stress, like severe shivering and fatigue, and what to do if you or a coworker exhibits them. Sometimes, the only way to protect yourself from workplace hazards is to wear personal protective equipment, or PPE. PPE protects you from hazards caused by work processes, the environment, radiation, chemicals, or mechanical irritants. PPE must be kept clean and in good condition to be effective. There's a type of PPE to protect you from your head to your toes. Let's start at the top. Protect your head with the hard hat where required. Know how to properly wear, adjust, and maintain it so it protects you effectively. Keep your eyes safe with protections such as safety glasses, safety goggles, welding helmets, and face shields. All eye protection must fit over your prescription lenses if you wear them. You can also use prescription safety glasses and goggles. Don't think that regular prescription eyeglasses will protect your eyes. They won't. What about your ears? Workers often underestimate the need for hearing protection, but the damage from noise exposure can be devastating and irreversible too. You can protect your hearing by wearing devices such as earplugs and earmuffs provided by your employer. Respirators are a form of PPE that protects against air contaminants. It's very important to get a good fit and wear the right type of respirator for the hazards involved. If your job requires a respirator, your employer must train you on how to use it properly. Gloves are the most common type of hand protection. Use the correct glove depending on what you're handling, because gloves are job specific. Good fit is a must too. Foot hazards include compression, puncture, slipping, wetness, chemicals, and extreme temperatures. Keep your feet safe with safety shoes and boots, and if necessary, metatarsal guards designed for the work you do. Basic safety shoes and boots must meet industry standards. Specific foot protection is also available to provide some protection against electrical hazards when necessary. The type of equipment you use can vary widely by job. One thing all equipment has in common, though, there's a right way and a wrong way to operate and maintain it. You must be trained to operate any and all machinery and equipment before you start using it. Something you'll find in just about all workplaces: forklifts and material handling equipment like pallet jacks and stackers. The upside of using these types of equipment is that they save time, money, and an aching back. The downside is that, like any machine, they can be hazardous if not used correctly and safely. Never operate forklifts or material handling equipment without proper training and authorization. It's not just operators who are at risk either. Each year in the U.S., many workplace pedestrians are injured in accidents involving forklifts. Forklift operators have to practice good safety habits, but so do you whenever you're around one. Use designated pedestrian walkways whenever they're available. And it may seem obvious, but look both ways before stepping into an aisle, around a corner, or through a doorway. You'd be surprised at how many people fail to do so. Also, be aware of blind spots. Convex mirrors, when available, will help you see if a forklift is coming. Listen for warnings. Forklift operators will sound the horn to alert you of their presence. When a forklift approaches, make sure the operator sees you. Although it may be tempting to save time, never walk under or work beneath raised pallets or forks. Never ride on forklifts unless an appropriate seat or position is provided. No shortcut is worth the injury that could result. Operators are trained to yield the right of way and to not speed or make sudden turns. But you never know when a momentary lapse in judgment might occur, so be on the lookout. If you work with machinery, be cautious. Some tools, machinery, and equipment can trap your hands or clothing and pull you into the machine, causing severe injury. Some equipment can send sparks or fragments flying. Machine guards, screens, and shields help protect you against injuries. All exposed moving parts must be guarded. Even if you think they're in the way, guards must not be removed. It simply isn't safe. If guards become damaged or inoperative, shut the machine down and have the guard inspected and repaired if necessary by a qualified person. Use the right tool for the job. How many times have you heard that in your life? It's not just to make the job easier, it also makes it safer. Always inspect tools before using them. Operate tools according to the manufacturer's instructions, and take damaged tools out of service. Just like anything else, tools need regular maintenance to perform at their best. If the tool calls for it, wear appropriate PPE and don't remove any safety guards. They're there to protect you. Continuous use of vibrating tools and equipment can also cause serious injury. To minimize your risk, don't use any more force than you need to. We touched on falls from slips and trips earlier. Falls can also occur when you use ladders and stairways, and the fall can be a lot more serious. Falls happen for a variety of reasons, including your failure to inspect the ladder or stairway before you use it. Other problems: wet, greasy, or oily shoes, or poorly maintained ladders or stairs. When it comes to ladders, choose the right one for the job. You can help prevent injury by inspecting ladders frequently, using them properly, and keeping them in good shape. When you place a ladder, see that it has a good, solid base, and watch out for any overhead electrical hazards. Here's the right way to climb a ladder. Make sure your shoes are clean. Face the ladder, use both hands, hoist tools up only after you reach the top, and don't lean out to do the work. On stairways, take the same precautions against slips and trips you would on flat ground. Only be even more vigilant and use the handrail. Does your company do any welding? Even if it's not part of your manufacturing process, welding is commonly used in the workplace for maintenance and repairs. If you pass by or work near a welding area, don't look directly at the bright arc, or even at the bright reflections of the arc. In addition to the intense visible light, welding emits ultraviolet and infrared radiation that can harm unprotected eyes and skin. If you'll be welding in your job, you can expect to receive specialized training and guidelines on the specific PPE you'll need. No matter how much planning your employer does, emergencies can happen. That's why your company has an emergency action plan. Every employee, including you, needs to know what to do in case of fire, severe storms, injuries, chemical releases, and other emergencies. Your company will train you on the proper response to various emergency scenarios. We'll talk about some general guidelines here. At the most basic level, activate your company's emergency response system or call 911. If 911 isn't available, know where to find the emergency phone numbers for hospitals, doctors, and ambulances. Every workplace should have at least one person on site with a valid first aid certificate who can analyze situations and treat certain serious injuries. If a worker needs first aid, call for help. Don't administer first aid unless you're properly trained to do so. Know where first aid supplies are located in your workplace, and make a point to let your employer know when supplies are low. Also, know where eye wash and shower stations are, and how to use them in case you get chemicals in your eyes or on your skin. Some work sites have automatic external defibrillators, life-saving devices that can restore normal heart rhythm. You'll want to know who's trained to use one and who's trained in CPR. You should also know the signs of frostbite, hypothermia, heat exhaustion, and heat stroke, and get medical medical help immediately if they occur. OSHA requires your employer to keep records of employee injuries. If you're injured on the job, even if it's just a minor injury, report it to your supervisor immediately. It could save someone else from being hurt down the road. A workplace hazard you can't even see is blood-borne pathogens. These are microorganisms sometimes found in blood that can lead to disease, even death. Certain other body fluids can sometimes be infectious too. So it's important to minimize potential contact with blood-borne pathogens and body fluids by following the exposure control plan at your workplace. Never directly touch another person's blood without proper protection. It's simply a best practice for your own safety. Follow universal precautions. That means treat all blood and body fluids as if they were infectious. Use proper gloves and personal protective equipment, and wash your hands often. Always follow proper procedures for sanitizing contaminated surfaces and equipment, and disposal of blood, needle sticks, and other potentially infectious materials. This is the biohazard symbol, and it means blood-borne pathogens may be present, and you need to be extra cautious when you see it. Chemical spills and releases pose their own unique set of risks. How to handle them is outlined in a regulation called Hazardous Waste Operations and Emergency Response, or HAZWOPER. HAZWOPER requires employers to have plans for responding to hazardous substance releases. Some work sites have emergency response teams, people who know how to handle spills and releases. Others use outside services to respond. If you're the first to discover a spill of an unknown substance, don't attempt to clean it up yourself. Follow your company's specified procedure. We've covered a long list of safety-related items, but there's one last item, perhaps seemingly unrelated, that can affect your personal safety, and that's workplace violence. Unfortunately, all workplaces are at risk from violence of one type or another. If you're aware of a troubled employee making threats, exhibiting major personality or behavioral changes, showing signs of severe depression, or displaying an unhealthy preoccupation with weapons, let your supervisor know about your observations. Wherever your job takes you, think about safety throughout the day. Adopt good work practices. Be vigilant about potential hazards. Use and maintain equipment as it's intended, and know what to do in case of emergency. Remember, no one can keep you safe without your cooperation. Do your part by practicing good safety habits every single minute while you're at work. When you think about safety, when you choose to be safe and take responsibility for your own safe behavior, you go a long way towards protecting yourself and those around you. Good luck and take care.